Hi, everyone. Welcome to Waste360's Nothing Wasted podcast. On every episode, we invite the most interesting people in waste, recycling, and organics to sit down with us and chat candidly about their thoughts, their work, this unique industry, and so much more. So thanks for listening and enjoy this episode. Hi, everyone. This is Liz Bothwell from Waste360 with Matanya Horowitz, co-founder and CEO of AMP Robotics. He's also fresh off of winning Waste360's first Innovator 40 Under 40 award. Welcome, Matanya, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Liz.
We have so much to discuss, but please tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in this unique industry. And did you really play with Transformers and watch the Jetsons?
Oh, yeah. No, I would say those Saturday morning cartoons were really, I think, what first turned me on to robotics. But yeah, I've always been fascinated by these interesting ideas of, what creates intelligence and how is it that people are so good at all these amazing things they do, whether it's, the way we use our hands or the fact that we can read and really think. But yeah, so I went to graduate school to study robotics, studied for my PhD at Caltech, and had a chance to see what was working well in robotics and what was still a challenge. And what I worked on myself was what we called robotic grasping, but trying to teach robots how to pick up different objects. And what I learned was humans are amazing. And we really had not figured out what it was that allowed us to be so sophisticated. You think about picking up something simple like a cup, and there's all these things going on where your hand starts to feel a cup and kind of, we call it localizes it, but figures out where that cup is without you even looking at it, just based on the texture and how it's sliding against your fingers. And we had no idea how to do that in robotics.
Wow.
But what I saw was computer vision was becoming incredibly powerful very, very quickly. And so I started studying that, and then, became enthralled with it and was looking for different areas where it could be useful. And that eventually led me to recycling.
So how far do you think the robot's mind has come since then in the grasp? And tell us a little bit about that transition since, I think it was 2013.
Yeah, well, more broadly, not my work, but more broadly, actually that technology has come a really long way since 2013. There's a whole field now called deep learning, which is a particular way of trying to answer the question of how to teach machines to think in a particular way. And there's all this interesting work happening right now with grasping and with trying to teach these things to make real decisions. And there's some really great groups out there, different groups like Google and DeepMind, among many, many others, doing really interesting work. I wish I was more involved with a lot of that now. Now I kind of look from I'm a bit of a bystander. I find some of the work we're doing at AMP Robotics keeps me pretty preoccupied.
Sure.
But in terms of what we've done, it's interesting where there's these kinds of exciting advancements. What we're always trying to do is take those insights and apply them to the real world as fast as possible. And so, if we read something interesting from one of these more academic sources, and it has a little gem of an idea, it can go from idea to application within a day or two. So it's just all of those advancements. They're kind of hitting recycling, and they're hitting all these other industries, whether it's automotive or manufacturing or anything, just amazingly fast. I'm not sure that I've certainly never seen anything like it. I don't know if the world's seen anything like it. This rapid transition from knowledge to application.
Oh, it is. It's speed of light. It really is. And now that you've been in it a while, are you seeing other uses for AI and robotics in our industry in particular?
Yeah. So at AMP, we actually started in construction and demolition material, but quickly switched over to single stream recycling. And there, there's a lot of tough problems we're trying to solve. We're trying to identify all this different packaging, even though it has all these different labels. There's so many different types of, different types of resins, different types of fiber. And in retrospect, it was probably the hardest problem we could have picked, especially the ones we went after first. We have a great partnership with the Carton Council, but we found, the cartons have so many different graphics and stuff on them. We really had to find a great solution to make it work well, which we did, of course. But yeah, now that we have that, we're starting to look at all these other domains. We have a great partnership with ERI, sorting out e-waste. And the technology has really transitioned to that very nicely. And in fact, I wish we'd maybe started with e-waste first. There's all these things we found that make it a little bit easier. And then more recently, we've worked with our partner, Ryoshi, in Japan to launch our technology into construction and demolition recycling. And then we're continuing to look at all the other niches that you have in the recycling industry, automotive scrap and others. And, it's incredibly exciting for us. We had this thesis when the company first started up. You think about all of these different sorting applications where you have people standing by conveyor belts, sorting out things by hand. Not only in recycling, but in all these other industries, you have hazards and different dangers on the lines, different issues with getting enough people to do it because it's not the most thrilling job. And the thought was, if we have this new technology, this artificial intelligence that lets us identify material as well as a person can, all these applications start to be open to automation. Yeah, and so we're seeing even applications outside of recycling. Our results are pretty preliminary, so I probably won't dwell too much on them, but sure. But absolutely, you just imagine that this kind of, in robotics, we call it a pick and place problem. You're picking something and you're just putting it somewhere. They're ubiquitous, kind of spreading our wings a little bit, but with doing that in a way that doesn't take our eye off the ball of recycling.
And then you said that AMP is digging in as deep as you can to see if you can bring down the cost of recycling. So tell us about that. Do you see that starting to happen as well? Yeah,
so the kind of mission statement, if you will, about AMP is to change the fundamental economics of recycling. Mm-hmm. So of course, we're a startup. We try to be ambitious,
yes.
and have a very Silicon Valley-esque slogan. But where our hope is that the kind of the technology that we have, this artificial intelligence, can really open up new doors in recycling and really not just be a incremental improvement, although, of course, that's kind of what we're contributing right now, but really be something substantial that can go, pretty deep in the industry. So we started with this problem of sorting different materials and trying to do that with a system that requires very little retrofit in these recycling facilities. And we think that's key. By minimizing the cost of deployment and essentially making it as easy to adopt these systems as possible, we think that's how they get sort of mainstream adoption and wide acceptance. But we see that as just the beginning. There's all these different pain points in the recycling industry that have been difficult to deal with. So sorting is one of them, but also maintaining quality, understanding operationally how well a facility is doing, knowing if a piece of equipment goes down. So there's lots of things we're doing now with our vision system to try and provide that operational insight to facilities. And the reason it's so hard in recycling is that it's very hard to make a MRF look like a manufacturing facility when it's difficult to measure what is moving through a facility. There's a saying, what you can't measure, you can't control. And if you want to know the purity of your fiber or something like that, if you can't measure the fiber and the contaminants, where do you even begin? Trying to address these other pain points using this artificial intelligence as a sensing mechanism, using our vision system. That's one of the things we're doing. But also trying to look at other mechanisms where intelligence be used. We've had discussions about using it to control other equipment, potentially even developing new kinds of equipment, things like that. So we see the robots as just the beginning of a longer journey in terms of deploying this technology. And this is just, version one, and an exciting one. We went after what we hope is kind of a big opportunity for us.
What do you see as your role or AMP's role in the circular economy? And has that changed since you initially started?
Yeah, everything's changed.
I bet.
Because, when we first began, we were a bit of, I'd say, outsiders to the industry. We didn't really, I knew about as much about recycling as kind of most people. When I started visiting these MRFs. The first one I visited was Puente Hills in Los Angeles, and then also visited early on EcoCycle in Boulder, and just asked a lot of stupid questions. Just try to figure out what was going on. But and the sorting application was very clearly a challenge. People would love to be solved, but yeah, we initially didn't have kind of a broader appreciation for the implications and the importance of kind of a wider circular economy approach. But now it's something that we talk about a lot and is really exciting. Maybe to give you a couple specific examples of how we think about this, the artificial intelligence and the robots can be incredibly specific about what they identify. So not just identifying, is this PET or HDPE, but we can read the logos, we can read the texts and graphics on all of these materials, which is how we do our identification. And so we actually distinguish things like, say, a Captain Crunch cereal box, or, what's a Pepsi bottle or what's a Coke bottle. And so what that does is we can actually have really deep insights into how packaging is moving through the waste stream and actually recover industrial volumes of specific materials. And so we think that, the technology opens up new avenues for kind of the circularity, where you need a lot more specificity in what you're sorting. You need higher purity to be able to kind of boost that wider circular economy story. So yeah, we think there's a lot of specific areas where we can make an impact. But yeah, more broadly, I think I'd say our vision system's ability to kind of monitor the material stream, we think will give insights that helps us really understand how do you create a circular economy effectively and really understand material flows and economics through that process. So part of a wider theme that we think we can have a hand in.
I mean, we know how it is with startups, and you had a hand, obviously, in the technical side, the programming side. Do you still get to do that now that you've moved into the role of CEO and programming being your first love? Are you able to do both, or is that impossible at this point?
I would say we're very fortunate to have a very talented technical team. We have a number of different sub-teams in machine learning and what we call the robot stack, the guys who do the motion planning and kind of the vision parsing, great mechanical engineering team. And so sometimes I would say I dabble.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm still, I'm certainly aware of everything that goes on, but I don't really contribute a lot. We found team members of the team who are much better than me and more qualified. And that frees me up to, I'd like to think be strategic, but maybe just more of just a dabbler.
Gotcha.
But for me personally, it's exciting because writing code, creating a good mechanical design, obviously it's a lot of hard work, and so I get to, rather than doing the hard work myself, I get to just kind of see all these things, issue dictates, and see the results. And so it's on the technical side, it's quite a bit easier in many ways, but also even more rewarding because since I have my hands in so many things, I get to see it. It feels like the progress is just neck breaking. It's just so fast when you kind of see the sum of what everybody's working on.
Now, I keep reading about a robot tax, even from people like Bill Gates. Do you think that will? Do you think that's going to go anywhere?
So I'll actually change your question into two. Do I think it'll go anywhere, and do I think it should go somewhere?
Yes.
So these are my personal opinions, not necessarily opinions of AMP, but there have been other periods where there's been heavy mechanization or automation of industrial processes. So, the Industrial Revolution is sort of, one great example. And, humanity got through it. But, there were times where life was actually pretty rough, where, if you read the story of Andrew Carnegie's family, they did this hand loom weaving things. I'm not an expert in it, but then the machines basically automated a lot of that. And that was, a challenge for his family and all these things. And so I think broadly, you're starting to see, not just with artificial intelligence, even things like optical sorters and other tools that can, do the work of 10 people, but also with artificial intelligence and autonomous cars and things like that. Their entire industries are facing these transition points where lots of work can be automated. And so I think society does have to ask questions about, what's the right way to handle that? Things like a robot tax are one mechanism to do that. And I think that it has merit. We should be looking at that. How much would that inhibit things? How do you actually tax that? What do you decide is robotic labor and what isn't? Sure. All of these questions. But as a believer in the power of the technology, I see a real risk with, the potential for this wide scale automation. And so I think those are the right questions to ask. So maybe my answer is, should it happen? Maybe. I would say I probably some sort of tax or some sort of sensible way to deal with these issues. Do I think it will happen? I don't know. In the current political climate, it's hard for me to imagine that actually happening, even if I was an advocate for it. Yeah, I think whether we sort of deal with this intelligently or not, that's an open question.
Sure.
even if we should be.
Right. Very good answer. So now that you've been in this industry for a little while, what else do you think we should be paying attention to in the world of waste, recycling, and organics?
Most of the things that come to mind are the things I think people are already looking at, which is, these new pieces of technology, from us and from other vendors. They're really opening new doors in terms of quality. And if I was, even if I wasn't kind of in my current position, I would be heavily focused on, okay, how do you really extract the most value out of all of this material? How do you get highly pure material? How do you run your facilities really hard with a lot of throughput to really maximize the investments that have been made? And I think that's what's happening right now all over the industry, maybe even accelerated by the situation with China and what's going on with commodity prices right now, where, if you're in this business, you're saying to yourself, okay, it's getting harder to, what's the expression? It's like squeeze blood out of the stone, right?
Right.
So let's put our heads together, roll up our sleeves and figure out how to do exactly that. And when commodity prices recover, we'll be in great shape. So I think new technology is opening up doors that let us combat, falling commodity prices. And so that's what I would be looking at, as technical tools as a solution. And of course, shameless plug, I think robots are a great way to do that. It's some of the work we're doing now, bringing our robots to fiber lines, increasing our throughputs and getting, really good purities. What we're trying to do is make that transition to heavy automation and allowing facilities to extract all the value they can out of those materials as easy as possible. But of course, we're one tool among many. And, I see some of the things with the new optical sorters, improved reliability of different things like disc screens. Even though I don't run a MRF, those things all make me excited as well.
And then you did mention your interesting partnership in Japan and that you had just traveled there and you're going to transition this technology into C&D. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that will be done, going from sort of the picking, sorting, determining contamination and then how that parlays into a C&D facility?
Yeah. So for those listeners who might not have heard not that this is that big of news, but we started working with a group out of Japan named Ryocean who sells C&D recycling equipment. And they asked us about using our technology for that material. At the time we kind of dabbled a little bit, but hadn't really focused on it. But working together with them, we transitioned over that. We started gathering a tremendous amount of data, testing our gripper and testing different technologies. They had a robot that they actually brought to the table to pick heavier stuff, and we kind of brought our robots to the table, which are higher speed in terms of pick rate, but lower mass per pick. Yeah, just to actually build some really great systems that we're really, really happy with. And so those have now been launched in Japan. We did that at the Expo, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and just had a great response within Japan. They have a lot of different demands due to their distribution of landfills, their rules and regulations. Land there is a little bit more dear than it is here in the United States. So actually a tremendous amount of C&D recycling over there. What we had to do was see if the neural networks, which is the name we have for the piece of the artificial intelligence that we've developed, see if those would adapt to C&D. So we set up our vision system over in Japan to start recording data, and that all gets sucked up into our, we call it the AMP cloud, but the infrastructure we have to sort of ingest that data and then allow us to look at what the neural networks are doing and the decisions they make and then make corrections. So we've actually been doing that for a while now. So I think maybe even as much as 6 months. Yeah, what we saw was that we have a tremendous data set of municipal solid waste and a lot of expertise that we built up over time. And I'd like to say it was really, this huge challenge, but really we crushed it.
Oh,
C&D was just
great.
just fit right into what we're doing. And, what was nice is we were kind of worried about but how many different kinds of wood are there? How many different kinds of aggregate? But really there's, when we go out to identify cartons, I don't know how many there are, but let's say there's thousands of different kinds of cartons. There's really only a couple, dozen types of wood that you're trying to identify. Like there's only so many, walnuts or maple trees that'll be invented.
Sure.
And so the consistency actually helped us out quite a bit. And so once we saw that, the next focus was just the gripper. And we've just had, great success with suction technology and a lot of the work we did there also transitioned over. So it was kind of I think we went from kind of beginning to end within 6 months to move the technology over there. And it was a testament to the engineering that we've done so far. And then also just the great support we've had from our partners at Ryocean. They're just, it's fun. It's just been kind of fun to work with them. And it's just great when you have kind of a team with a similar mindset that just kind of has fun with these technical problems.
So you're speaking at Waste Expo in a session called Robots and Recycling, a dynamic duo. I'm sure attendees are going to love this one. Do you have any idea of what key takeaways they can expect at least from your perspective?
Well, what I hope they come away with is a sense of, for those who haven't been exposed yet, a real understanding of, what this robot stuff means, where it can be useful in their facilities. And then, I think it's really good. We have both me and William Hancock from Plexus, and who's with selling the Zen robotic system, giving a variety of perspectives on the robots, but also the operators who will be there. One of which is Bill Keegan from DemCon. And so they can speak to kind of what their real world experience is with them, with the robots. Yeah, what I hope the attendees see is that, these robots, last year it was kind of, oh, okay, these things are here. People are saying they're working, but, they're kind of just getting their legs underneath them. Now you're starting to see really wide scale deployments, a lot of robots going in, some really substantial success stories. And so, kind of this feeling of, or at least this is the feeling I have, not that I'm biased, but, these things are here to stay, and they are working and they're providing true value. And now they're really battle tested too. And so, we can start to talk about making a broader impact in the industry and not, I think it's very reasonable to be skeptical even still, but especially last year, kind of, really how well is this going to work and where is it going to be well suited? A lot of those questions can be pretty well answered now. Yeah, we can start to talk about, making improvements all across the country inside these facilities.
So you've accomplished so much in such a short period of time in our industry. What advice would you give to professionals who are considering entering our industry?
I would say that the industry, I think there's this perspective that, well, especially with the recent press, that, recycling is a tough industry to be in. Mm-hmm. There's not any money to be made. And it's kind of like, this old school grimy thing that's kind of crummy to be in. And I haven't found that to be the case at all. It's a very dynamic industry. Lots of things are changing, of course, in regulation and with the technology. But when I go to facilities, most facilities I visit have a tremendous amount of know-how about what works well, to operate the facilities. And I think people are really starting to leverage that know-how and really drive down their internal processing costs and kind of accelerate the pace at which they're able to extract value out of all of these materials. A lot of facilities that I visit are able to still do well despite these depressed commodities prices. And so, it just creates for this dynamic industry where a lot of these facilities are actually growing. And I just find that very exciting. It's a much more of an exciting industry than I think people recognize. And and it just makes it fun. And just kind of on an interpersonal level, a lot of the people that I've dealt with in business, it's just been, I don't know, they're kind of, I just feel like they're my kind of people.
Right.
They're looking to do the right thing and just, build a real business and just build something substantial. I just feel like what more could you ask for in the colleagues you work with?
Yeah, that's so true. And I agree. It's much more exciting than people might think it is. And also there's such an entrepreneurial spirit. I mean,
exactly. Yes.
From the grassroots haulers to what you're doing and the innovation of the industry, it really is an exciting time to be in it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I really wonder how things will look in 5 years or something like that, when a lot of these things this know-how has continued to spread, a lot of the technology that's kind of, growing rapidly is kind of becomes the old school technology, and everyone will take for granted robots and these extremely efficient optical sorters and all of these things, and, screens that don't need that much maintenance. And I actually think that the industry as a whole is, I don't know, it seems like it's advancing very quickly.
It does feel that way. And thank you for adding to that, because that's the spirit we need in order to advance
thank you. Right.
So are you still naming your robots something human, or have you moved on from that since you're getting a little more industrial?
Oh, yeah. So actually, our product, our robots are called the AMP Cortex, but all the press we initially got on the first one actually called it the nickname that we'd given it, which was Clark. So they've actually always had the Cortex name, but yeah, we give facilities the opportunity to name them. And it's good because, we kind of need a unique identifier within our system. But we've had Clark was our first one. We named that. We didn't let Alpine name it because we were, that was our first baby. But after that, we've had one named Hot Dog. So the sorters found a name plaque in the material by the robot, and it was hot, and then DAWG.
Oh, that's
Hot
great.
Dog, and they just put it on the robot. At another facility, they found a Transformer toy and put it on the robot. So that one's Optimus Prime. So most of them get names. If they don't, then we give them really boring serial numbers and try to get the guys to give them names.
That will convince them, I'm sure.
Yeah. So ACD 005. Yeah,
right.
it doesn't roll off the tongue.
It doesn't. So what else keeps you busy outside of work? I know you're crazed, but are you enjoying outdoor life in Colorado?
Yeah, we try to. So me and my wife works at the National Renewable Energy Lab, and she's frequently actually flying around the country as well. So to be honest, right now we see this as kind of our career building time.
Sure.
And so we don't do a whole lot, but we're fortunate to live in Golden, Colorado, which has just a tremendous amount of hiking. So we just kind of sneak out, grab a quick hike, and then we try to align our travel schedules as much as we can. So we're fortunate to actually be seeing a lot of the country right now, and that's a lot of fun. But yeah, so I guess I'd say travel and a little bit of hiking is kind of our forte.
Oh, that's great. And what a great way to see each other by trying to coordinate the travel. That's brilliant.
Yeah. When it works, yeah.
Right,
Although
exactly.
I a lot of the time it devolves into both of us sitting across from each other in the hotel room writing emails, but that's a date too. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. At least you're productive together. That feels good.
That's right.
So how can listeners hear more from you and more from AMP Robotics?
We've recently brought on our VP of Marketing, Chris Worth, and so for those of us who have been following, I haven't been that good about updating things with news articles and such, but Chris is setting up a whole bunch of infrastructure. And so if you contact us through our website, we'll put you on the mailing list and get you a whole bunch of stuff. And we have a Twitter feed and LinkedIn that's much more active now. But then, of course, we're also in a number of the publications. But yeah, getting on our Twitter, I think would be the main way. We put just about everything on there.
Speaking of hiring, I see that you also hired, is it a VP of operations as well?
Yeah, Rob Espinoza. And Rob is just a fantastic asset to AMP Robotics. And some of your listeners may know him. He seems to know everybody in the recycling industry. He's been around a while, but one of the exciting things that we're working on right now is going from one or two or three robots to a much wider scale set of installations. Now with Japan, even internationally, and so we have a really strong need to build an excellent operations and services organization. And so we were very fortunate to bring on Rob Espinoza for that role. And so he's building kind of our service delivery team, our ability to fabricate these systems, and just a whole bunch of Rob has so much work right now, but he's so much fun. Anybody who knows him knows that he's the first guy to roll up his sleeves and have a good time doing it. And that's kind of how I am. So it's just been a blast working with him.
Sounds like you have a really great team there.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think, especially these days, it's a lot of work. We're trying to build a big company pretty fast. And, what's nice is we're able to do that since we're seeing traction in the market. But we try to have fun doing it. And we're just, honestly, when we interview people, the main thing I look for is just, are they a nice guy? So
right. That's
it's just, it's just a fun team of people to be working with.
Well, we're really looking forward to celebrating you at the 40 Under 40 Awards at Waste Expo and hearing your session. This has been great. Thank you for being an awesome guest and spending so much time with us.
Oh, thank you very much. It's true honor. And myself and the wider AMP team is really grateful to be recognized in this way. It means a lot to us.
Oh, good. Well, congratulations again. Well deserved.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.